Have you ever felt trapped in a room full of people where nobody speaks your language? Not English, not any conventional tongue, but the language of depth, of existential questions, of analysis that never rests. Society loves to glorify high intelligence as a pure advantage. Awards, academic recognition, surface admiration. But psychology reveals a darker truth that almost nobody talks about. Exceptional cognitive ability often comes with deep isolation, existential despair, and a kind of paralysis that hides behind being analytical. If this resonates with you, understand something important before we go any further. You are not broken, you are not defective, and most importantly, you are not alone. Jung offers an unsettling truth. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. The exceptional mind lives with a heightened awareness of contradictions, absurdities, and the emptiness of meaning that most people comfortably ignore. You see too much with too much clarity, and that creates a burden, the burden of seeing what most people choose not to see. Highly intelligent people process reality on a different frequency. Casual conversations feel exhausting, small talk feels meaningless, superficial connections become almost intolerable. What you crave, desperately, is intellectual depth in a world optimized for convenience, distraction, and shallow entertainment. Studies confirm that people with exceptional IQ report much higher rates of social isolation, not because there are no people around them, but because there is almost no genuine intellectual connection. Imagine walking into a party. There's laughter, animated conversations, people connecting all around you. You stand there, listening, waiting for a doorway into something real. You try to share a thought that actually matters to you, a question about life, a deeper observation about human behavior, and the entire energy in the group shifts. Eyes glaze over. Someone changes the subject. A joke cuts the tension. Eventually, you stop trying, and a painful realization hits. You are completely alone, surrounded by dozens of people. Over time, you learn to play a role. You nod. You laugh at the right moments. You ask the safe questions. How's work? What have you been watching? You know the script, and you know how to perform it, but while your mouth plays along, your mind is somewhere else entirely, analyzing, observing, questioning why none of this feels real. Research shows that gifted adults experience much higher rates of social isolation, not because they lack people in their lives, but because they lack meaningful intellectual connection. What some researchers call a cognitive frequency mismatch is simple to understand. People with higher IQ operate on a different wavelength. What you find fascinating, abstract ideas, philosophy, complex systems, bores most people, and what entertains most people, gossip, trends, small talk, leaves you feeling empty. Intelligent people get tired of constantly simplifying their thoughts, dumbing down their language, and watching understanding fail even after several attempts. You explain an idea, then explain your explanation, then break it down even further, until you are no longer saying what you actually mean. At some point, you realize you're not even talking as yourself anymore. You're performing a lighter, thinner version of your own mind. Over time, this creates cognitive translation fatigue, the emotional burnout that comes from constantly lowering your level just to be understood. Eventually, you stop making the effort. You choose solitude over the pain of being misunderstood, and something inside you starts to die, the part that once believed deep connection was possible. Friendships and romantic relationships become complicated because gifted individuals need nuance, depth, and intellectual stimulation. They don't just want to know what you did today, they want to know what you thought about it, what it meant to you, how it changed you. Partners may feel inadequate, friends may feel frustrated, and the intelligent person retreats into books, solitary hobbies, and rich internal worlds. Research on gifted relationships shows the same pattern again and again. The need for intellectual depth is not elitism. It is a basic psychological need. This week, you can try a simple experiment. Instead of trying to fit in, just notice when you are translating yourself downward or hiding your real thoughts. Notice when you laugh even though you're not actually amused. When you agree just to avoid conflict. When you pretend you don't care about something that matters deeply to you. Don't judge it, just observe it and write in a journal. How many times today did I simplify what I really think because I was afraid no one would understand? Accept that truly meaningful connections will be statistically rare. For you, quality over quantity is not just a preference, it is survival. A few people who truly share your wavelength matter more than a crowd that never really sees you. There is also a kind of depression that almost never appears in standard manuals. It's not mainly caused by trauma, brain chemistry, or external events. It is caused by clarity, by the devastating ability to see life exactly as it is, without the protective illusions most people keep in place. Exceptionally intelligent people are more vulnerable to what psychologists call existential depression, an intense focus on life's lack of inherent meaning, the inevitability of death, and the painful gap between how the world is and how it could be. If you've ever found yourself lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling and thinking, "What's the point of any of this?" you've tasted a bit of it. While others worry about deadlines, gossip, and daily drama, your mind drifts to questions like, why are we here? Why do we suffer? Why do people keep repeating the same mistakes? You don't do it to be dramatic. Your brain simply goes there on its own. Studies on gifted students show that this sense of emptiness and meaninglessness strongly correlates with depression, especially when combined with emotional and cognitive hypersensitivities common in gifted minds. High intelligence brings sharp awareness of human cruelty, social hypocrisy, environmental destruction, and systemic injustice. You see the patterns behind the headlines, the incentives behind the decisions, the selfishness behind the rhetoric. Where others rely on cognitive dissonance to look away, the gifted mind cannot unsee. Jung teaches that this painful awareness is the shadow of intelligence. You pay for the gift of seeing clearly with the burden of being unable to close your eyes. You can't go back to believing in simple, comforting stories once you have seen the machinery behind them. You can't unknow how fragile life is once you've stared directly at death. You can't pretend the world is fair once you've traced the systems that keep it unfair by design. Gifted children often enter existential questions far earlier than others. While their peers are still enjoying simple childhood, they are asking adult questions about death, meaning and injustice, and they carry that sense of displacement into adulthood. They are the kids who ask teachers, why, one too many times, who feel older than their age, who seem too serious for their environment. Their cognitive abilities race ahead while their emotional regulation skills lag behind, creating an internal gap that hurts. Gifted people usually carry intense idealism about what humans could be and how systems should work. They can imagine better worlds in vivid detail. So when they see corruption, cruelty, and indifference, it doesn't just annoy them, it wounds them. Watching reality fail again and again creates deep disillusionment. Anger turns into cynicism, hope hardens into resignation. This week you might write a letter to the void. Take a piece of paper and write down everything that feels meaningless, unfair, absurd. Don't edit or censor. Write the thoughts you never say out loud because you don't want to be too negative. Then on another page write, if life has no inherent meaning, what meaning do I choose to create? It doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be honest. Nietzsche said, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Your work is not to find a cosmic meaning. Your work is to choose a personal meaning despite knowing there is no guarantee. There is another struggle, the curse of analysis paralysis. You stand in front of a decision, and instead of seeing 2 or 3 options, you see endless branches of consequences. You don't just weigh A or B, you simulate entire futures in your mind over and over. A simple choice, like changing jobs, becomes an entire movie in your head. How it affects your identity, your friendships, your income, your health, your sense of purpose 10 years from now. Research on overthinking and cognitive ability shows a clear connection. The higher the intelligence, the stronger the tendency toward analysis paralysis, especially in uncertain situations. Your mind becomes less of a tool and more of a cage. While others can say, "This feels good, let's try it," your brain replies, "But what about the 27 ways this could go wrong?" Dostoevsky's Underground Man is the perfect symbol of this. Not a man of action, but a man of analysis. Every decision is dissected so deeply that the will to act dissolves completely. Intelligent overthinkers criticize every impulse before it starts, mock themselves before anyone else can, and crush their own dreams before reality ever gets the chance. Neuroscientists describe this as pathological metacognitive loops. The mind thinking about thinking until nothing actually happens. It shows up everywhere. You overanalyze a text before sending it. You wait days to reply to an email because you want the perfect response. You talk yourself out of opportunities you secretly want because you imagine every possible bad outcome and convince yourself it's safer not to try at all. You don't just fear failure, you pre-experience it in such detail that you convince yourself it's not worth the risk. Analysis is a strength, but it becomes a problem when thinking completely replaces doing. Gifted people watch life pass while they calculate perfect paths they never walk. While you are still simulating scenarios, other people have already acted, failed, learned, adjusted, and moved on. It's not that they are smarter, it's that they are willing to move with less certainty than you require. For this, a simple tool helps, the 3-minute rule. For low-risk decisions, give yourself exactly 3 minutes. When the timer ends, you must decide based on intuition, not perfect logic. Start with small things, what to eat, which show to watch, which route to take. The goal is not the perfect choice. The goal is to teach your brain that imperfect action is always better than perfect paralysis. Over time, you can apply this to bigger areas of life. On top of this, many gifted people carry a constant sense of being a fraud. On paper, they have degrees, awards, recognition, but inside there is always a voice saying, "You just got lucky." Soon they'll see you're not as capable as they think. Studies show that imposter syndrome hits high achievers hard and is tied to anxiety, low self-confidence, and burnout. Vague praise like "you're so smart" or "you're gifted" creates a fragile identity that depends on never being seen struggling. If your value is being the smart one, then asking for help feels dangerous. Failing feels humiliating. To protect that image, many gifted adults avoid real challenges, decline opportunities, and end up underachieving compared to their potential. It's safer to stay in situations where you already know you'll look competent. One practical antidote is an evidence file, a folder where you save proof of competence, thank you messages, completed projects, hard problems you solved, specific positive feedback. When the imposter voice shows up, you don't argue with it emotionally, you show it evidence and let reality speak. Over time, you can start to separate how I feel about myself from what I have actually done. Perfectionism is another blade that cuts deep. Gifted people see perfect outcomes in their mind, and the gap between vision and execution feels unbearable. If it can't be perfect, why start? Becomes an internal law. Psychology separates healthy, aspirational perfectionism from maladaptive perfectionism, which is full of fear of mistakes and linked to anxiety, depression, and self-hate. Perfectionism often masquerades as high standards, but in practice it becomes sophisticated procrastination. If I can't guarantee flawless results, I'll wait, plan more, research more. You tell yourself you're not ready yet, that you just need a bit more time, a bit more knowledge, a bit more confidence. Projects never leave the mind and never enter reality. Many gifted people also carry a fixed mindset, believing their ability is a fixed trait instead of something that grows. So struggle feels like proof they aren't truly intelligent. The B- protocol is a powerful way to break this. Choose a low-risk project and deliberately aim for good enough, not brilliant. Write the article that is 70% of what you know it could be. Record the video that isn't your final form yet. Finish it, publish it, move on. Your mind will scream that it's not ready, that people will judge, that it's not your best. That resistance is exactly what you are training yourself to overcome. Perfect is the enemy of good becomes not just a quote, but a new rule for how you operate. Another layer is emotional dysregulation and hypersensitivity. The world feels too loud, too bright, too cruel. You notice the flicker in someone's eyes when they're disappointed. You feel the tension in a room before anyone speaks. You pick up on dynamics that others seem completely blind to. You feel everything at a higher volume than most people, and when you try to explain, they tell you you're being dramatic or overly sensitive. Dabrowski called this overexcitability, intense emotional, sensory, and mental responses that can make everyday life overwhelming. High intelligence often brings extreme social awareness. You notice micro-expressions, tiny tone shifts, and contradictions between words and body. Your system is constantly decoding social data that others don't even register. Many gifted people can understand complex systems, yet struggle to manage their own feelings. As kids, they might solve advanced problems and still have meltdowns. As adults, they can explain psychology and yet feel completely out of control inside. They can describe their anxiety in detail, but that doesn't stop the racing heart or the spiraling thoughts. Because emotions are experienced at full volume, joy as euphoria, interest as obsession, disappointment as devastation, others see them as too much. Over time, they learn to hide their intensity, splitting what they feel from what they show. They become experts at looking fine while carrying storms inside. A simple sensory recovery protocol can help. Learn your early overload signs, and when they appear, allow yourself 10-15 minutes alone with no input, no phone, no conversation, just quiet breathing. Step outside, go to the bathroom, sit in your car, close your eyes. This is not weakness, it is maintenance for a nervous system that runs hotter than average. Instead of pushing through until you crash, you start to respect your own limits. Society romanticizes the Renaissance person, but research on multipotentiality shows that in real life it often brings paralysis, fragmented identity, and constant doubt about wasted potential. Every commitment comes with opportunity cost. If I choose this path, I'm sacrificing all those other possible selves. So even when gifted adults are successful, they can feel haunted by ghost lives, alternate futures they never lived. Modern culture also punishes generalists, rewarding narrow specialization and forcing people into single labels that never quite fit a polymath mind. Job applications want one clear role. Social media bios demand a one-line identity. But your mind doesn't work like that. You think in networks, not boxes. Here, the deathbed test becomes a powerful compass. Imagine yourself at 85, looking back and asking, which version of my life would I regret least? Not the most impressive life, not the richest life, the most authentic one. Then write, if I could live only one of my capacities fully, it would be, and answer, not with logic, but with what makes your chest expand instead of tighten. All these struggles, loneliness, existential depression, analysis paralysis, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, hypersensitivity, multipotentiality, are not random defects. They are the shadow costs of operating with an exceptionally powerful mind. Jung would call this shadow work. Your task is not to erase these patterns, but to bring them into consciousness so you can work with them instead of being controlled by them. For a mind like yours, deep relationships will always be rare. Quality over quantity isn't optional, it's essential. Your analysis paralysis can become strategic thinking when you pair it with action deadlines, good enough standards, and systems that force movement instead of endless planning. Nietzsche's idea of amor fati, loving your fate, means learning to love even the weight of your own mind, not as punishment, but as the price of clarity and authenticity. Your path is not to shrink yourself or pretend to be normal. It is to integrate your loneliness, perfectionism, overthinking, and intensity into a coherent, conscious self, and to use your intelligence not only to think deeply, but to design a life that honors both your depth and your basic human needs. You are not broken. You are operating on a different frequency, and for this week there is only one challenge. Choose one small act of authenticity, not a huge transformation, not a grand gesture, just one moment where you refuse to shrink to make others comfortable. That is the real courage of being exceptionally intelligent.